Alien biologists shocked by human childbirth, top HFY stories. The observation chamber was silent, save for the hum of the advanced equipment monitoring every biological process. Alien biologists from the Zorith Collective had studied countless species across the galaxy, cataloging the intricate and often bizarre methods of reproduction. But nothing could have prepared them for what they were about to witness. A young human female, lying in a sterile, white room, was preparing to give birth. The humans, despite their seemingly fragile biology, had been a subject of fascination for the Zorith Collective. Their resilience, their tenacity, and their unique physiology made them one of the most intriguing species ever encountered. The biologists had seen many species give birth before, some through external sacs, others through spore dispersal, and even a few that reproduced via asexual budding. But nothing was like this. The human female's body was going through convulsions, a process the biologists knew to be called labor. Their instruments were set to record every detail: heart rate, blood pressure, hormone levels, and the chaotic, synchronized contractions of the uterine muscles. One of the biologists, Zarnok, a seasoned specialist in reproductive physiology, adjusted the focus on his visual monitor, preparing to take notes on what he assumed would be a rather unremarkable process. But as the first scream of the human woman echoed through the chamber, something in Zarnok's mind shifted. "What is this?" Zarnok whispered, his four eyes widening in disbelief. This is impossible." The human female's body seemed to twist and convulse in ways that defied logic. Her heartbeat surged, blood pressure spiking to extreme levels, and then, as if in slow motion, the child's head began to emerge from the woman's body. It was a process that defied the laws of biology, an act so intense, so dangerous, that it should have been fatal for any other species. Zarnok watched in stunned silence as the child, covered in mucus and blood, was pulled into the world. The process was raw, violent, yet somehow miraculous. The mother, exhausted and trembling, cradled the newborn against her chest, her breathing heavy but triumphant. The alien biologists, who had spent their entire lives studying the delicate balance of life across the galaxy, could hardly comprehend what they had witnessed. "This is beyond anything I have ever studied," Zarnok murmured, still staring at the monitor, his hand shaking as he reviewed the data. "Their bodies, it's like they are made for this. The sheer strength required to bring a life into existence through such a violent process. It's like nothing else in the galaxy." The human birthing process, something so ordinary to them, was a testament to the species' extraordinary resilience. Every instinct, every organ, every muscle had been honed over centuries to survive the brutal ordeal. The biologists couldn't understand how such a fragile species had endured, generation after generation, the kind of birth that would have killed lesser beings. Zarnok turned to his colleagues, a look of reverence in his multiple eyes. "This is why humans are different. This is why they endure where others perish." One of the younger biologists, overwhelmed by the display, stammered, "How do they survive this? How do they continue on after such an ordeal?" Zarnok paused, his expression one of awe. "That is the heart of it. They don't just survive, they thrive. It's not the birth that defines them, it's their ability to face the impossible and emerge stronger. A species that can endure something like this, over and over, across eons, they have something that no other species does. They have something special." The biologists watched in silence as the mother smiled through her exhaustion, whispering words of comfort to her newborn. The child, now swaddled and safe in her arms, looked up at her, its tiny fingers curling in search of warmth. It was then that Zarnok realized, this was the essence of humanity, their unyielding spirit, their ability to face the impossible and emerge victorious. The birth wasn't just a biological process, it was a symbol of who they were as a species, and the Zorith Collective had just witnessed the raw power of that spirit in its most primal form. "Humanity," Zarnok muttered to himself, "is a force to be reckoned with." And for the first time in his life, he truly understood what the humans meant when they said, "We don't give up." As the alien biologists continued their study, the room filled with a sense of profound realization. Zarnok felt a growing respect for the humans, something deeper than just scientific curiosity. It was awe, a kind of reverence for the species' sheer ability to endure what no other species in the galaxy could. The young biologist who had spoken earlier, Tessa, was still staring at the data, her mind trying to process what she had just seen. The data doesn't even capture the full scope of it, she said, her voice soft, almost as if she were speaking to herself. The human body, no. Their very being, is engineered for survival, not just in how they're born, but in how they live. Every part of them, every cell, is designed to push past limits. Even their birth, they emerge from suffering stronger. Zarnok nodded, still watching the mother and child, who had now been transferred to a separate recovery room. They aren't just surviving, he said, a note of admiration in his voice. They are made to grow from it. This is not just an evolution of body, but of spirit. The fact that their young can survive this ordeal, without the luxury of safe, external incubation like other species, that is what sets them apart. And their will, their drive to protect their own, is unmatched. The biologists continued to observe the recovery process, noting the remarkable resilience of the mother. Within moments, she was resting, her heartbeat slowing to normal levels, her breathing steady. The child, swaddled in blankets, already began to show early signs of instinct, reaching for the warmth of her body, nuzzling against her chest, searching for the nourishment that would come. For the first time, the biologists were stunned into silence, not just by the mechanics of reproduction but by the soul of it. The human mother's strength had nothing to do with the machines or the instruments in the room. It came from something deeper, the need to protect, the urge to fight for life, the drive to make sure their species endured. As Zarnok gazed at the scene, his thoughts turned to the countless species they had observed before. Most species, when faced with a difficult birth, would require significant medical intervention or the death of the infant to ensure the survival of the parent. Yet humans, despite the risk, endured again and again. The biologists had seen enough to know that this resilience was not limited to childbirth. It was in everything humans did. They fought against the odds, defied the impossible, and, in the end, survived. What does this mean for our understanding of them? Tessa asked quietly, her voice filled with wonder. Zarnok stood motionless, staring at the data and the recovered mother and child. After a long pause, he turned to face her. It means that humans will never be a species that can be easily defeated. No matter the odds, no matter the obstacle, they will find a way to prevail. Their strength is not just in their bodies, but in their hearts, and that is something we cannot quantify. As the biologists continued their work, they came to a shared conclusion. Humanity was not a species that could be catalogued and studied like any other. They were a force, a living, breathing testament to survival, to strength, and to an indomitable will to overcome. It wasn't just their biology that set them apart, but their spirit, a spirit that could never be fully understood, only admired. And so, the Zorith Collective, with all its vast knowledge and advanced technology, walked away from that observation with a profound truth. In the vastness of the universe, humanity was a species that could not be ignored. The galaxy might be home to countless wonders, but humans would be the ones who defined the future. For, in the end, it wasn't just their bodies that were extraordinary, it was their hearts, and that made them unstoppable. The alien biologists would return to their homeworld, taking with them data that would be analyzed for centuries to come. But the memory of that birth, of witnessing the incredible strength of humanity, would stay with them forever. In the grand scope of the universe, there was one undeniable truth. Humans were not just another species, they were a force of nature. And they were just getting started. The Zorith Collective had studied the most formidable species the galaxy had to offer, but none had left a mark like the humans. After observing their childbirth, the alien biologists were left with questions that went far beyond simple biological data. They were faced with a profound realization. The true power of humanity was not just in their physiology, but in their ability to adapt, to endure, and to rise above the challenges that should have broken them. Back on the Zorith homeworld, a meeting was called to discuss the unexpected findings. The Council of Biologists and Strategists convened in the Grand Hall, a room filled with holographic displays, alien artifacts, and the hum of deep space technology. Zarnok stood before them, flanked by his colleagues, as the final analysis of the human birthing process was presented. As we've analyzed the data, one thing has become abundantly clear, Zarnok began, his voice filled with a quiet but undeniable reverence. Humanity is not just another species, they are Exceptional. Their resilience in the face of physical trauma, their determination to protect their own, their sheer will to survive, it goes beyond anything we've seen in the galaxy. A murmur ran through the council as the biologists exchanged looks of uncertainty and awe. One of the senior strategists, an old Zorith named Vornak, spoke up. We've encountered species that thrive in extreme environments, but they do so because of their evolutionary advantages. What makes humanity different? Zarnok looked over at his team, then back at Vornak, his expression serious. It is not just the body, Vornak. It is the spirit. No other species has exhibited the same drive to survive against such overwhelming odds. Even when their birth process risks both mother and child, they continue. Their survival instinct is tied not only to their physical strength, but to their emotional resilience. They will protect, they will fight, and they will endure. That is the nature of humanity. The room fell silent. The Council of Zorith had studied warlike species, those that could devastate entire planets with the flick of a switch. But they had never encountered something like humanity, a species with no inherent power, no natural weapons, yet capable of defying every expectation, every obstacle placed in their way. Vornak nodded slowly. This is troubling. A species like this could become a threat if they learn to harness their power properly. Zarnok, for the first time, looked uncertain. That is exactly why we cannot underestimate them. They are not like the others. They are not a species driven solely by survival or dominance. They are driven by something greater, a need to push forward, to grow, to build. Tessa, the young biologist who had been part of the initial observation, spoke up hesitantly. But isn't that the very thing that makes them so dangerous? They don't give up, even when they should. They push through the most unimaginable odds. Zarnok nodded. Yes, that is exactly why we must tread carefully. If we continue to study them as we would any other species, we risk missing something fundamental. Humanity doesn't just adapt to their environment. They change it. They bend the world around them. And, I believe, that is their greatest strength. The council fell into a deep contemplation. The Zorith had encountered countless intelligent species throughout the galaxy, but none like humanity. None with this unyielding drive, this refusal to be beaten down. In the depths of their vulnerability, they found their strength. After a long pause, Vornak spoke again. We must keep our distance, allow them to grow, but do not interfere. The human spirit is not something we can control. The more we study them, the more we risk triggering their resistance. Zarnok gave a slow nod, understanding the gravity of Vornak's words. Agreed. Our goal must shift. We are not here to dominate them or understand them completely. We are here to observe and learn, and most importantly, to watch. The council disbanded, leaving Zarnok standing alone in the center of the room. He stared at the holographic projections of the human family he had witnessed earlier. The mother's exhaustion, the child's first cries, the quiet strength in the face of adversity. Whatever happens next, Zarnok muttered to himself, we cannot allow ourselves to forget what we have seen. Humanity is a force that will change the course of this galaxy, and we need to be ready for that. Months passed, and the Zorith collective kept their distance. They continued to observe the humans from afar, never intervening, but always watching. They saw humans colonizing new worlds, building cities that defied the harshest environments, developing technologies that allowed them to explore the farthest reaches of space. But the most fascinating discovery of all came when the humans encountered other species, some far more advanced than they were. The Zorith collective watched in awe as humanity, despite its relative youth in galactic terms, began to carve out its place in the universe. They allied with species they had once feared would dominate them, brokered peace treaties, and even helped weaker species develop technologies that allowed them to survive. Through it all, the Zorith came to one undeniable conclusion: humanity was the force to watch. Their greatest strength wasn't their technology, their might, or even their resilience. It was their belief that nothing, no matter how impossible, was beyond their reach. They believed, above all else, in the power of the individual and the collective. And for the Zorith, who had seen so much in the galaxy, that was the most dangerous thing of all. In the end, the alien biologists realized one simple truth: humanity didn't just survive the universe, they would one day shape it. And that terrified them.